Yeah, Frame Raider.
Pac-Man World, a series of platformers that were highly regarded in the 2000s, or at least the first two. I'd only ever played the first one before and never actually beat it. Gave it another try recently, put in just short of 2 hours, and yeah, this is a fairly solid platformer. Whereas many arcade classics tried to recapture the initial appeal of their game in 3D, Pac-Man World decides to be its own unique, almost 2.5D platformer that I would argue takes more inspiration from games that aren't Pac-Man, but the identity is very much intact here. They often revisit the familiar maze versus ghosts concept, which I don't believe exists for any story-related purpose. What you see in Pac-Man World exists not because it makes perfect sense, it's just for fun. That being said, I can't say the game doesn't get repetitive over time. Now, typically I don't play a sequel until I've finished the first, so I never got around to playing Pac-Man World 2. I finally said, screw it, and decided to play it anyways. And that's pretty much my intent behind this video, to settle my lingering curiosity of Pac-Man World 2. First things first, they've gone for a simpler level select screen, unlike the small hub world from last time. Not missing out on too much though. Wow, there are so many 1-ups and health pickups. Quite forgiving. Or so it seems at first. Many of World 2's levels have branching paths that eventually redirect to the main path. It's significantly more open than Pac-Man World 1's levels, though still quite linear. They tend to remind me of those SpongeBob games by Heavy Iron Studios, which were released later, so it's just a familiar comparison. But overall, this variety and attention to detail keeps World 2 from feeling repetitive like its predecessor occasionally was. Not at all to say the Pac-Man World 1 is a bad game, I like it quite a bit. The depth of World 2's levels are just a little more interesting. Although I will admit the theming took a bit of a hit in this one. World 2's environments are, kind of what you expect. Grasslands, a volcano, an underwater world. It does feel a bit generic in that aspect. I should note that Pac-Man's jump height is fairly high, at least compared to most platformers that I play. You're going to be falling from the air a bit longer than usual, which is a benefit to the player technically, as super fast reflexes won't be needed to perform efficiently. You can turn your brain off and enjoy the sights. Yeah, sure, it might not have the most exciting graphics for its time, but in today's generation of throwbacks, it feels refreshing to play a Y2K era platformer, even with its Y2K era platformer problems. One of World 2's big issues is the camera. You get free control for the majority of it, but in specific areas it gets locked. Then you end up thinking, why? Why did they lock it here? How should anyone predict this gap? Why is it turning? No, I can't see! This all in combination with very specific speed-based platforming towards the end can make this game a chore to play at times. There's a level called Volcano Panic. Absolute nightmare. Especially as it wants me to use Pac-Man's charging ability on tiny platforms surrounded by lava. And what follows it is another crudely designed level. Do you hear the frustration in my voice? Some while later you reach the Haunted Boardwalk, which has these crazy long stretches without checkpoints. The worst part is how most of its terrain is falling off, so you're encouraged to sprint through it all while pulling off some wild jumps, a few of which I could believe are frame perfect. Segments like these can go on for more than a minute, which might not sound like a lot, sure, but it feels like it with how many times you'll retry from trial and error. I can't say I enjoyed that. It's a nosedive compared to the first few worlds, which I had actually really gotten into. Say what you will about the following, but I felt like the fun had ended after the volcano world. I was just exhausted by this point. Now, I do hope you can forgive my frustrations, because otherwise, Pac-Man World 2 is good. I always like to see how a series evolves from one generation to another, and World 2 was, for the most part, a solid transition. Its greatest problems could be fixed with a remaster, so hopefully Namco eventually gives it the repack treatment like they did with Pac-Man World 1. So, Pac-Man World 3. You can probably tell that I'm flipping through subjects quickly here. I found that pretty much any recognizable game at this point has hour-long breakdowns by people who grew up with them. The value that I can give you for these is a first-time perspective and whether these games are worth jumping into or not today. I think that the first two Pac-Man World games are, for traditional platformer fans. Pac-Man World 3, on the other hand, look, I had no idea what to expect here. I figured it'd be lesser World 2, but once I had posted about this project, plenty came to me saying World 3 sucks, you're not gonna like it. And I was like, damn, this must be a real stinker. I had known that the PSP and DS handheld versions were pretty much the same game, and during that generation, this wasn't usually a good sign. What was once a console series is now being designed with weaker hardware in mind. Ironically, in this case, its scale isn't really an issue, it's the gameplay. This feels completely different from both games before it. It's like a combat platformer with fetch quests. There's a rumor that this wasn't planned to be a Pac-Man World game initially, though I can't find the source of that information, so take it with a grain of salt. It would make sense though. I mean, it wasn't even developed by the same team. World 3 was taken on by Blitz Games, known for various licensed platformers like Taz Wanted and 2 Fairly Odd Parents games. Eventually Sneak King as well. How about that?
Did someone say cake?
Oh, there's voice acting now? That's an odd choice, but okay, I guess. Pac-Man has a lot of new moves, including a freaking combo punch. I don't mind the moveset. They've improved a couple things, added some neat mechanics, and the platforming overall feels to be refined. But much of it plays like a beat-em-up where you have to defeat X amount of enemies to progress. That or finding a key to open the next area. If you're hoping to find the same linear platforming as before, it's just not here.
I want you to help me calibrate Pac-Man.
Pac-Man? You have a new Pac-Man? A new big giant robot Pac-Man?
Well, I'm glad you're having a good time, Pac-Man. I don't think this is fun at all. World 3 has some occasional weird gimmicks like this one, and I can't say it's good. At all. I'd rather clean the dishes than this. I don't think you can say something worse about a piece of entertainment. Alright, look, there are redeeming factors here, like the sense of humor. While voice acting itself leans on subpar, the writing has its moments.
I guess.
Help me!
Help! Who?
Seems to be the most memorable thing about the game. You can find compilations of it on YouTube, and these have more views than I expected. I suppose World 3 was starting to grow on me a little bit by the time I had finished playing, but let's be honest, there are other games like this that you'd probably rather sit through. As per me, I can't really say this gameplay style interests me much in the first place. You know, it's funny how this series went through the same sort of decline that Ty the Tasmanian Tiger did, almost exactly 1 month prior. Anyways, those are my short thoughts on the Pac-Man World series. And no, I haven't played Repack, but I wouldn't mind giving it a shot someday. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's less of a review and more of my thoughts on. I've been picking up shifts recently, so it's been hard to balance YouTube with my own personal life. I've been thinking of giving shorter projects like this a shot while I figure things out. Nonetheless, thanks for watching as always. Have you played the Pac-Man World games before? What are your thoughts of the series? Let me know in the comments. But that's all for now, so I'll see you in the next one.